So today, what I want to talk about is our two ESPN commentators, Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless. And the reason I want to talk about this is because Stephen A. Smith felt it necessary to talk about a editorial cartoon that ran in the Charlotte Observer, in which Cam Newton, who is the quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, for those of you who do not know, was depicted wearing a Hello Kitty shirt underneath his football jersey. So, for those of you that don't know, Cam Newton has a touchdown dance that he does where every time he gets in the end zone, he pretends to pull back his shirt like this, as if he were Superman, to reveal the Superman uniform underneath his shirt. So instead, the Charlotte Observer, since Cam Newton's been underperforming this year, they depicted in their paper an editorial cartoon whereby when he pulled back his jersey, it revealed a Hello Kitty t-shirt underneath. So there was the cartoon that you just saw. Personally, I thought was pretty funny. If you are a young man, as Cam Newton is, getting paid millions of dollars every year to play a kid's game, and you receive tons of adulation and hero worship when you're doing well, then you got to put up with some of this stuff when you're not performing up to expectations. Excuse me. So the thing that irked me to no end is that Stephen A. Smith implied in a video he made for ESPN that this had racial connotations and racial overtones, that the reason that Cam Newton was being made fun of was because he is black, and if he was a white quarterback like Tom Brady, this would not happen. Which is all I can say is, Stephen A. Smith, you're a moron. And when I call people morons, it's not because I disagree. Everyone should be allowed to have an opinion. But you're really going to bring race into this. The reason I would call someone a moron, and Stephen A. Smith is a moron for in this particular subject and topic material, is because a moron is someone that just repeats something that he's been told to believe without thinking, without using his brain. A moron is anyone that comes to a conclusion without using their brain and without thinking. And the reason I say this is because of what Stephen A. Smith said to preface his contention that this could potentially be a racist thing because Charlotte is in the South and it has a history of slavery. Okay, Cam Newton was depicted in a cartoon wearing a Hello Kitty t-shirt. He wasn't in a Hello Kitty t-shirt. I can understand if he was depicted in a cartoon hanging from a noose from a tree. Okay, that definitely has racist overtones. But just because he's wearing you're going to criticize, and it's a truthful criticism that he hasn't been playing well, and that's why he was criticized. Now you're going to bring race into it. And why this irks me to no end. Okay, one of the things Stephen A. Smith said is that if you're not black, then you don't get to decide whether it's racist or not. Only black people get to decide whether it's racist or not. And he said, just like he said, as far as anti-Semitism is concerned, if you're not a Jew, then you don't get to say something's anti-Semitic or not anti-Semitic. Yes, I do. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and you're an absolute moron. And Skip Bayless, you're a moron too for agreeing with Stephen A. Smith, because I heard you say, yup. And Stephen A. Smith was making these moronic comments. Because, okay, let me tell you something. Racism has nothing to do with your color, as far as like knowing what racism is. Okay, so like someone that is black does not know what racism is any better than someone that is Latino, or someone that is American Indian, or someone that is Asian. Racism just has to do with what's right and what's wrong, and anyone that's a human being can have an opinion, and a legitimate opinion, whether something's racist or not. And the same thing is like something being anti-Semitic. So this is actually how hatred is perpetuated. It's because people say you don't have a right to judge because you're not Jewish, you're not black, you're not Asian. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Now, if you're not educated in history, then of course there's merit to not making a comment about something that you're ignorant about. But certainly, if you have taken the time to educate yourself, about, say, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, then you have the right to use the brain. Not only do you have the right, you should use your brain to make a comment where you see injustice perpetrated, and you should say something based upon the moral imperative that we all have to speak our minds in this regard. And so the same thing with if you're educated about slavery, and if you're educated about oppression of Asians throughout history, then even if you're not black, if you're not Asian, then you have a right to speak out on these issues, and you have a right to be heard. So that is a problem when you have people propagating the fact that people should not be using their brain. This is basically what people are saying when they say you don't have a right to speak about this issue. That means, okay, stay ignorant, don't learn about the subject, and don't use your brain, which is just entirely wrong. And it's unbelievable to me that journalists would propel this kind of perspective out into the forefront and still have the audacity to call themselves journalists. Okay, let me give you a couple of examples of just how moronic Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless are for agreeing on this particular point. Okay, March 16th, 2003, 23-year-old American female, Rachel Corrie, was in Gaza trying to prevent the illegal Israeli bulldozing of 2 Palestinian homes. And in the process, the person operating the Israeli bulldozer ran over Rachel Corrie and killed her. So I can say, yes, that was a terrorist act of the Israeli government against Rachel Corrie, and that was flat out murder. You know, some people will say, okay, Rachel Corrie had a choice. She had a choice to move when she was told to move instead of standing in front and trying to protect someone's property against illegal bulldozing. But sure, she could have moved, but also the bulldozer operator made a conscious decision to run her over, and that's murder any way you look at it. So I can say that is wrong. And Stephen A. Smith is going to say, if Jewish people say, oh, that's so anti-Semitic to call that act of terrorism, that no one has a right to question the stupidity of saying that's anti-Semitic, to say that was murder. So that is just an idiotic statement, because again, we shouldn't be looking at things through skin color. There's right and there's wrong. It doesn't matter if you're black, if you're a Christian, if you're a Jew, if you're a Muslim, if you're white, if you're Latino, if you're Asian. It doesn't matter. There's right and there's wrong. And that's how you judge things. You don't judge things because colored through the lens of religion and say, oh, only someone from this religion can judge whether it's right or wrong. Or only someone from this skin color can judge whether it's right or wrong. That is just absolute stupidity. And secondly, okay, you want to talk about like not being able to challenge something as racist is because you're not the right skin color. Okay, when back in the day when I applied for business school, I didn't get into UC Berkeley's business school. Okay, and I could say because my test scores were greater than 99% of all people in the entire United States, and that's a fact because I scored in the 99th percentile, which meant only 1% of people scored better than me. Then I could have claimed racism against UC Berkeley and said, oh, UC Berkeley is so racist because they let in 99% of Latinos that scored lower than me, 99% of white people that scored lower than me, 99% of black people, and sued them for racism. And then, according to Stephen A. Smith's lack of logic, he would say, because I'm Asian, and if you're not Asian, you can't basically oppose my contention that was a racist act on behalf of UC Berkeley, even there's many other factors why they might not have admitted me to their business school. So those are just 2 reasons out of many examples, or 2 examples out of many examples, just to disprove the points that Stephen A. Smith was trying to make about Cam Newton and imply that was potentially a racist editorial cartoon. Okay, so how this relates to the financial world, it's just about shoddy journalism. Unfortunately, today, a lot of journalism is intended to dumb down people, to get people not to think. And this is a prime example. Stephen A. Smith's moronic commentary is a prime example of this sensationalism journalism, whereby there's no facts, there's no logic, there's no colleagues that will even question that. So Unfortunately, companies realize sensationalism and controversy sells. So they'd rather sell or they'd rather present sensationalistic, trivial topics that have no merit, that are backed by no facts, that are backed by zero logic to the people. And that's exactly what's going on in the financial world too. You have a lot of sensationalistic journalism that doesn't present that, like, does not prevent facts to the people, and that's why no one understands why the global economies are imploding everywhere in the world. So it actually does relate back to what's going on in the financial world. If you look at why there's still less than 1% of all global investment assets invested in gold and silver, which have been the best performing asset classes for the last 11 years. This is precisely why, because no one understands gold and silver because you have sensationalistic journalism that are backed by, you have reports that are devoid of facts, I should say, not backed by, devoid of facts, and that's why nobody understands. So, when you look at Stephen A. Smith saying that, you don't have a right to say whether something's racist or not, unless you're the same skin color, that is dumbing down people. And if people believe it, then they're not using their brain. So that's the danger, is when you have so-called experts dumbing down people. Like, it's the same thing to say, this is the reason why you have people say, oh, why are you helping people in say I'm helping some poor people in Bolivia. Well, you were born in America, so that's not right. Well, why is it not right? So, but in essence, what you're telling me, again, because you are going off of these narrow-minded, bigoted, nationalistic views, because you're telling me that a poor Bolivian person's life is worth no more than a poor American's life. That's what you're saying, basically. They're not equal people. The American is better than a Bolivian if you're going to criticize, like, who I choose to help. Because if you think about it for a second, and that's why I say it's critical to use your brain. If I was born in Bolivia, okay, no one has a problem with me helping Bolivians. But that's totally random. You can't help where you're born. So if I was born in Bolivia, me helping Bolivians is okay. But if I was born in America, me helping Bolivians is not okay. Or if I was born in Brazil, then people should say, okay, if I help Brazilians, that's okay. But if I help Bolivians, that's not okay. You see how narrow-minded and stupid this is? So it shouldn't be even nationalism, which politicians have taken to a new height and governments have taken to a new height, is a concept that can only appeal to sheep, to people that don't think, because it has nothing to do with what's right and what's wrong. It only has to appeal to creating controversy and to creating hatred and to creating division. So we should all just concentrate on morality instead, and that's how we can make smart decisions. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching and have a great day.